Boston Celtics made headlines recently with their sign and trade deal with the Charlotte Hornets for Gordon Hayward. Most people at first were clowning Danny Ainge and the Celtics for only basically getting a second rounder in exchange. But what most people soon figured out was that the mastermind in Ainge was able to get the largest trade exception in NBA history for around $28.5 million. Now, there's a good amount of people who are confused with how this trade exception works. So pretty much, if the Celtics want to trade for a player who makes around $20 million, or $15, or even $28 million, they are able to do this without sending any money back. The Celtics will still need to trade some assets, but in a sense, the exception should be a salary matching coupon in any trade. As long as the player that the Celtics are targeting is making under $28.5 million, their trade exception works. In my personal opinion, I believe Danny Ainge will wait until actually next offseason, because the Celtics do basically have 1 year to use this exception because of one big reason why. The Celtics are going to be a hard cap this upcoming season because they use the full value of their mid-level exception, and Danny Ainge would most likely want to keep the repeater penalty fine for going over when Tatum's max contract extension kicks in. But with this being said, let's actually take a look at 3 under the radar moves that would make a lot of sense for the Celtics. It may not be the most talked about, but hey, it's all about the fit that matters. So the first under the radar move that would make a lot of sense for the Celtics is going after Clint Capela of the Atlanta Hawks. I'm not going to repeat this in every Celtics video, but you guys pretty much know by now the Celtics had a huge center problem in the playoffs, and even though they did sign a quality center in Tristan Thompson, he's still another undersized 5 at 6'9". Enter in Clint Capela. For starters, Clint Capela would work perfectly under the salary cap matching the trade exception because he's making $18 million for the next 3 years. But why the Celtics should be extremely interested in him is because of how he's an excellent athletic rim protecting big. As I mentioned in one of my recent videos about the Atlanta Hawks, Capela had an insane defensive season for the Rockets before he got traded. Prior to the trade deadline, Capela had a defensive plus minus of 2.4, which was the second best in his career, and Synergy ranked Capela in the 77th percentile in points per possession allowed. Capela isn't going to provide much for the Celtics on the offensive end, but when looking at the roster, do they really need him to be a scoring option for them? With the likes of Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Kemba Walker just to name, Capela would fit in perfectly with his role on this team. Get rebounds, get blocks, and run the floor to get easy chances. And probably the biggest reason why this move would work for the Celtics is how they address their mediocre 3-point shooting. Capela was exposed as a liability at times under the Rockets, due to their tendency to get extremely cold from 3 and teams such as the Warriors trying to make Capela beat them. But under this Celtics team now, with floor spacers such as incoming rookies Peyton Pritchard and Aaron Nesmith, and also considering that the Celtics offense is nowhere near as one-sided as D'Antoni's system was, Capela's weaknesses could be blended in perfectly. But honestly, the reason why this makes sense for both parties is that for the Atlanta Hawks, do they truly need him? Drafting a forward/center in the draft in Okongwu is basically suggesting that the Hawks believe he is their center for the future, not Capela. With that being said, do the Hawks really want to keep him on contract for 3 more years? And considering that we haven't even seen Capela play since the deadline, his stock possibly couldn't be any lower than before. Keep an eye out for this. Nobody talks about Capela, but he'd blend in really well with this Celtics team. Now, whatever you may think about Gordon Hayward, he was a vital component of this Celtics team when he was healthy. His ability to spread the floor, handle the ball, and drive towards the rim is really valued in the NBA among forwards. As a result, in a way to try and replace what Hayward did, enter in Harrison Barnes from the Sacramento Kings. This one might confuse a good amount of the fans, but Barnes would fit in perfectly. Under the Kings, he was in a role similar to what Hayward was for the Celtics. The Kings had their main options under De'Aaron Fox and then Buddy Hield. Under the Celtics, it was again players such as Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown ahead in the pecking order. But this didn't stop Gordon or Barnes from being nice, efficient pieces for their team. For Barnes, he was able to shoot 46% from the field and 38.1% from 3 on 3.7 attempts per game. He is on a descending contract, and considering that Barnes has shown to be a more than capable defender at times for the Kings, especially when he was first traded there, this would be a wonderful addition to make if Ainge were to do it. And probably the most important thing about all of this is that Harrison Barnes, historically in his career, has been able to stay healthy. Besides the 2018-2019 season, Barnes has played most of the regular season. And again, in the situation with the Kings, do they really want to hold on to Barnes? Considering that the Kings are going to have it extremely tough to make the playoffs, especially with the likes of Phoenix and even the Timberwolves improving, it would make sense to try and get some return back from Barnes while he is at peak value. The final target that would work well for the Celtics is PJ Tucker. He isn't a flashy name, and he's pretty old, but he would most likely be the final piece to a championship team. PJ Tucker, the past couple of years, has been such an elite defender. Even though PJ wasn't awarded in the All-NBA defense, his versatile ability on the defensive end, his ability to stay healthy and play all 82 games in a regular season, and also his ability to spread the floor, especially along the corner threes, will extremely benefit the Celtics. And probably the biggest reason why the Celtics should make this trade is that this will only make opposing Eastern Conference superstars such as Kevin Durant, Giannis, and even Jimmy Butler all the more annoyed to come up against a defensive gauntlet with the likes of Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, and then PJ Tucker. Having Marcus Smart constantly in your grill and trying to get under your skin would be annoying for any player already. But to add a player, as Kevin Durant called it, the best defender he's played against, these superstars will have to work for everything to get a basket on the offensive end, sort of similar to what the 2008 Celtics did to opposing teams. Let me know what you guys think. Until next time, peace.